So again, that is 7:30 in 220. What's that? No. Yes, it's 7:30 a.m. Yeah, it was 7:30 a.m. today. You all missed it. Okay. As some of you know, that would not be the first time I made students commit to something. Okay. But moving on. We're going to continue talking about this, which is electron transport chain. I did post this up on, so this figure is now up on D12 as well, so you can grab that as well if you want. So, post some figures. How about that? Okay, so we have gotten through the this right here, and then the this right here, and then the this, and the this, and the this right here, which is the NADH dehydrogenase complex, or complex 1, and then we have succinate dehydrogenase, which is complex 2. We also have coenzyme Q that we talked about, complex 3, which is cytochrome DC1 complex that we talked about, and then we talked about cytochrome C, which is a electron carrier, kind of like cytochrome, or not cytochrome, but excuse me, coenzyme Q. And now we are on to talking about complex 4. So that's just kind of like the really brief recap of where we've been and where we are at now. So now we're at the cytochrome oxidase complex, which is the AA3, or cytochrome AA3. Okay, so just again orienting you, it's here, and it's here. I actually have no idea why in the world they're different shaped in this. Because it shouldn't be, like, it's not that necessarily different shaped in different places in the enzyme. Yeah. What's that?
Like the ones on both sides are different.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's a lot. I think it's just like that needs to be shifted.
It is. It's all a lie. It's almost like they're not actually pictures, they're just diagrams that someone drew. And they didn't do a very careful job of it. The proteins are a lie. Yeah, okay. So, cytochrome oxidase complex AA3. This is not quite as big as some of them. It's 13 polypeptides. And the subscript 3 on the AA3 means that this has an oxygen-reducing heme group. And we have 3 of these polypeptides are encoded by the mitochondrial DNA, and 10 of these polypeptides are encoded by the nuclear DNA. Okay, so, yes?
How exactly does the 3 mean that it has a release?
This is another thing. At some point I looked up, I was like, oh, maybe that's cool. And then, I actually will not ask you this time. Okay, so it has 2 heme groups, therefore you can have 2 electrons transported at once. On those heme groups, and it also has 2 copper ions, which means I can transport 2 more electrons. A total of 4. Yes, Megan. Therefore. Yes. Okay, And so most of these things in the electron transport chain are taking electrons from somewhere and dumping them off somewhere, and this is doing the same thing. So this is picking up them from cytochrome. It's taking electrons from cytochrome C and then is going to give them to oxygen. And this is why, this right here is why you need to breathe oxygen. Because you need to have oxygen that you're dumping these electrons onto. Yep, final electron. Yes?
Which the cytochrome oxidase is taking electrons from cytochrome C
Yes.
and transferring them to oxygen.
Yes. Sure. Yeah.
This is like going back a little bit, but I vaguely remember in DB them teaching us that, this might just be a lot, but I remember them teaching us that like about complex 2, and they were like, don't get confused that it's complex 2 because complex 2 is before complex 1, it was just discovered that. But like the way that this diagram was like placed, it looked like those things were not necessarily in order.
Yeah, they're not.
So, I don't know.
Like it's like a bifurcation.
You remember that, right?
NADH.
She was first. And then
So one.
Second.
I know what you're thinking about. You're thinking about photosystem 1 and photosystem 2.
Oh, maybe that's it.
Yeah.
Probably.
I think that's what you are thinking about.
Oh, okay. That's
Because that is the case in photosystem 1 and photosystem 2, is that photosystem 2 comes first. And,
Oh, okay. I thought it was thinking. I was like, why? None of that. This doesn't make sense.
yeah. And that is that way in that case. So when we get to photosynthesis, and this is going to pump 2 protons across for each electron pair. Yes?
But when it was talking about like the glues and the copper ion, we're talking 2 electrons transferred, not 2 electron pairs.
Yeah, they're, okay, so those
Like,
are
this is
2
for-
electrons, yes.
Yeah, okay.
And now we're talking per each of those pairs. So it can take 2 pairs
Right.
for total electrons.
Right.
2 coppers, 2 ethers. And therefore, if all of its binding sites for an electron are used, or all of its electron acceptor sites, I guess, not binding sites, electron acceptor sites are used, and that's going to be 4 protons.
And
That makes
this is
sense?
just 1 proton per electron.
2, yeah,
It's 4 protons per the 4 electrons.
yes. There's 2 protons per pair, so it's 2 to 2. Don't let her confuse you. Just don't listen to her.
I was just rewording this because it says per electron pair.
Oh,
So it's
okay,
just
yeah.
one
2 per
I
pair.
got you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 2 per 2, so you divide 2 by 2, you get
Gotcha.
1 per.
That quiz had us counting.
Okay, what's that?
That quiz had us counting electrons.
2 per 2. Okay. Okay, so cyanide binds to this, and it blocks electron transport. And this should have been like kind of independent point, but also O2 reduction takes only 2 milliseconds. Actually, that's not all that.
And that's still fast on cellular metabolism scale. Yeah.
Yes. I would say yes. Okay, so one kind of thing just to talk about, kind of like generally, so envisioning how this works is all these molecular complexes, they're not stationary in the membrane. They're like most membrane proteins, they are going to be somewhat mobile. This, I mean, I'm giving you a diagram of these, all kind of like in this nice little they're all in this nice line. This is not like that. This is just a convenient fiction that I'm voicing upon you. And the artists that were involved with drawing those very asymmetrical proteins. I will not get into that. Feel light to now. They're actually moving through the membrane. Now that being said, okay, well, let me back up. They're moving through the membrane, and by just the sheer numbers of them, it is with a pretty good high degree likelihood that once they have an electron, they are going to, or an electron pair, or a quadruplet, or whatever they carry, they're going to interact with the next thing in the chain at some point. Now that being said, we've increased the likelihood of that happening by having a couple very, very mobile electron carriers in this process. You come here and you're looking at this. We have coenzyme Q, that is this shuttle between 1 and 3 and 2 and 3. And then we also have cytochrome C, that's this shuttle between 3 and 4. So all of this means that these large complexes that are somewhat slower at moving through the membrane don't actually have to find each other. Which, if that did, that would slow down this process. If these very large, rather slow-moving large complexes had to go around and find each other. Instead, you have these quick little zippy things that are either lipid embedded in the membrane or peripheral and protein that can zip around a lot faster that are carrying, shuttling between the larger, more slowly moving complexes. But all of them are mobile. Okay. That's kind of the aside and just general kind of idea of how this is working. Now, let's think about how many protons, and we're going to start counting how many of things are happening here. So we can eventually get to an accounting of, for glucose, how many ATP do we actually produce. So this is going to be, and we're not going to stop here. We're going to go on a little bit before we get there, but just to kind of keep in mind how many things occur for how many glucose we get all the way back in the beginning of glycolysis, how much stuff, how much result you actually get. So how many protons per NADH? And there are 10 protons that you pump across the membrane for every NADH that donates electrons to the electron transport chain. In the case of FADH2, we get 6. Just a reminder where we're getting that. Again, we're getting that from complex 1, complex 3, complex 4. One reason that FADH doesn't get as many is because if you come down here, FADH is getting dropped off here, or actually is part of complex 2. Complex 2 itself does not get any proton pumping happening. So for every FADH, you only have complex 3 pumping protons and complex 4 pumping protons. For every NADH, you have 1 plus the 2 and the 4. Does that make sense why you have more for NADH than FADH2? Yeah. Essentially, they both will cause, the proton or the electrons from both will cause a pumping across at 3 and 4. But only NADH also gets you the pumping across at complex 1 and 3. Well, it says all 4 of them, all 3 of them. Yes. NADH will cause at 1, 3, and 4. FADH2 will cause at 3 and 4. So they both will pump across at 3 and 4. If you get an NADH, you'll get pumping across at 3 and 4. If you have an NADH in addition to the 3 and 4, you also have at 1. But that's only for NADH. Does that make sense? Okay.
That's a 10.
Yeah, you have a 10. Six if you only have a FADH. Because remember, this is pumping across per electron pair in give you 4 for us.
Wait, do we need to know exactly how you get the 10? Like the breakdown of where?
You should, because we have 4, 4, 2 per electron pair. We have 4 and 2. So 4, 6. Does that make sense?
So if each energy is just carrying 2 electrons,
Yes.
so each electron here.
So then with FA for each, then it's 3 and 3.
2, or 4 and 2. What other questions you got on that? Okay, so now we have pumped a bunch of protons into the intermembrane space, and we've pumped them out of the matrix. We have this thing that we can now use, and this is known as the proton motive force. We have a concentration gradient of protons that we can use to do work. So the matrix pH is about 8. It's low because we do not have many protons in the matrix. On the other hand, the intermembrane space has a pH of about 7. So there's a 10-fold concentration gradient between any given time between the intermembrane space and the matrix. All the protons are very happy to take the red pill and they leave the matrix. Go into the intermembrane space. But really, you might just think, okay, we only have this 10-fold concentration gradient that we're dealing with, and that's not the case. What other gradient are we going to set up? There's a concentration gradient, that's the one. Yeah, you're going to have an electrical gradient as well. So we have an electrical gradient that is about a negative 160 millivolt gradient across the membrane. And then we have the concentration of the chemical gradient, that's 1 pH unit. Now that's equivalent, that concentration gradient is equivalent to the same force as about 60 millivolts. It's not literally 60 millivolts, it's equivalent to the same force as 60 millivolts. Thus, the proton motive force is about 220 millivolts across the intermembrane. So the free energy from the electrons that we got from Krebs cycle and a little bit from glycolysis, we're now storing that as the proton motive force. So what do we do with that? We have all this energy that we built up. What do we do with it? So these protons then can move back down their gradients by a special channel, which is known as the F0, F1 ATP synthase. And the free energy that is released from these protons moving down their 2 gradients is going to be coupled specifically to ATP synthesis. F0, F1 means that we have two major domains in this. We have two parts. The F0 portion is within the membrane. So the F0 part of the F1, F0, F1 ATP synthase is in the inner membrane, embedded in there. The F1 portion of the ATP synthase is above the membrane, inside the matrix. Ever since I cracked that stupid joke about 5 minutes ago, I've been thinking of the matrix as an allegory for cell energetics. In which case, NADH dehydrogenase complex is Morpheus. Yeah. Okay. Now the F0 portion rotates the stalk within the F1 portion. And this is part of what actually ends up causing the catalysis of taking a phosphate and an ADP and turning it into ATP. So who is the board? Okay. So this is a rough. So this is the F0 portion. This would be the intermembrane space up here. This is where we have high proton concentration. Down here, this is the F1 portion of that. And then we have protons, and inside here would be the matrix. So then we'd have protons going back in here, and then this would rotate, and we'd get catalysis happening. So if you were looking at this, now imagine to yourself, you were looking like your eye is right here looking this way, like you're like this, looking like that way. In which case you see something like this. So this is the F1 portion that'd be rotating, and there are 3 sites at which you can bind an ADP and a phosphate, in which case then they become catalyzed with the ATP, and then it releases. For every rotation now then of the unit, we get 3 ATP created. and apparently they become what questions do you have on that? Okay. Yes, of course. I will tell you, it's not a whole number. Yes?
So it's 3 ATP per one.
Yes. 3 ATPs inside per whole rotation. Yeah,
So the pH of the intermembrane space is 7, which is lower than the matrix.
yes.
So then wouldn't that be more acidic, so you have more conjugate ions? So if
Yeah, the intermembrane space, yeah.
So they were going with the concentrate when they were going into the matrix?
Yeah, they're going into the matrix.
Oh, they are going into the matrix. They're moving into the matrix.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, they're pumped out of the matrix. And then they come back in. So we come back here to this. Here's the matrix. This is the intermembrane space up here. This is where all your protons are, and then they go this way into the matrix. From the intermembrane space. Does that make sense? Okay. Did I accidentally say that wrong? Okay, good.
So isn't the proton moving that's making this rotate?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Is the protons moving through the channel that provides the energy that causes this to rotate. mean, it is within the same, next to is counterpart. It's like, is in the membrane, so it's moving around in the membrane. It's like asking, am I next to you? In some regard, yeah, that's kind of a weird question to ask. I'm not next to you like Andy's next to you. But imagine we're all moving around now, aimlessly through the room. And at any point saying, am I next to you? Well, any more than anything else? No, really. But I will interact with you every so often if I ran a chance. Does that make sense? Or am I making this more complicated?
I'm just trying to figure out, like, how did the protons, after they went through the complexes, got into the system, other than they were just pulled through the gradients?
Okay, essentially, yeah. I mean, think about this like water. Okay, imagine for a minute I had a big, like, you know the kids' swimming pools are like plastic. Imagine I took one and I put it up there, right? And I put some holes in it. Now there's holes in the bottom of a kid's swimming pool and it's up there. Why in the world would I do that? I don't know. But imagine down here, I had like a sink and it had some pumps in the sink that pumped water up into the kids' swimming pool. This is like the protons and the pumps, like the water is like the protons, and the pumps are like complexes 1, 3, and 4. Okay? They're pumping electrons or water up there. Once you have them up there, though, what are they going to want to do? Yeah, they're going to come back through those holes. Those holes are like the ATP synthase complex, right? And then they come back down through. Yeah. I mean, it's a little bit weird of analogy because those, like the pump is separated from the ATP synthase, and that's not the case. I mean, essentially you just have, they pumping through this way, and then they just come back down because you have a lot of them up there. And you have essentially a pressure that's pushing them back through. The concentration gradients you can think of like acting as a pressure that's pushing them back through. And so then they're going to flow back through down their concentration gradient. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Yeah. So you can just think of like that entire intermembrane space just having tons of protons that are just under pressure and going to push out. Do you have a question? You did raise your hand. I'm not just imagining it, right? Okay, maybe I'm just imagining it. Never mind. Okay, so this goes through about 300 to 1,000 ATP per second is produced, and it's producing it's producing 3 ATP per rotation. Yeah, one to 3 rotations per millisecond, or wait, not 1 per second because that'd be only 3. Five. Yeah. So it goes through a lot of rotations. So it goes as many as 100, as few as 100 rotations per second, up to about 300 rotations per second. If I'm doing the math right. Okay. So let's think a little bit more now about, and getting to Forrest's question here. I'm going to go to it down the long way around. So we have some sort of delta G needed for ATP synthesis, and that is plus 46. So this isn't a negative delta G, which means that this isn't going to just happen spontaneously. Like free energy doesn't just appear in your body. Or about, and in physiological conditions, this is about 11.3, or that's in kilocalories, that is 11.3 kilocalories. And the delta G for a proton moving back across the membrane is negative 20 kilojoules per mole. So we got 46 kilojoules per mole that we need to actually power one ATP synthesis. It's going to give you about positive 20, or negative 20, excuse me, to get a proton back down this negative 220 millivolt gradient. Therefore, it takes about 3 ATP to move across for every, or 3 protons to move across for every ATP formed. Now, it's not exactly a whole number if you divide those out. It's like 2 and then like you have a lot of change because then it's only like 6 kilojoules per mole left. So actually, that third you're not actually using well. But the thing is with this, you have to work in whole numbers with that in reality because you can't really save that. It doesn't have a battery to save that for the next reaction. And this is known as oxidative phosphorylation. This whole thing. We have taken glucose, we have oxidized it, and we use that energy from that to power the phosphorylation of ADP. So let's talk here real fast about generally, like now accounting for how many ATP can we get actually from a glucose molecule. So we have one glucose molecule. How many ATP can we make? So this is joining the very beginning of the process, at the beginning of glucose, all the way to the end of the process where we are making the ATP. So let's start adding up. For every FADH2 that we produce, we get 6 NADH, or 6 protons pumped across the membrane. For every NADH that we pump across, or that comes down, we get about 10, we get 10 protons per. But there's a slight exception to the second one. The net that we get for the 2 NADH from the cytosol glycolysis is only 6 for each NADH from glycolysis. Can anyone think of why that would be? Why do we get less? Yeah, can you think of specifically what other stuff? So the energy, there is energy being used. Now this is a little bit more complicated accounting than simply it actually only does 6, but there is a specific energy that you need to invest somewhere in this NADH. What's that? I didn't quite hear what you said. Okay. Say that one more time. I can't hear what you said.
Because it has like invest energy to phosphorylate.
Nope. That's accounted for by the ATP that you use.
So this is asking when you have less NADH or less protons.
Less protons pumped across for the NADH that you have brought in. Yes. Now it is the same like structure, but you're getting close. There is something different about that NADH. No, not quite, but it's getting closer. But you're close. Like this is really close. Yeah.
Would it be the COQ? Let's take the coenzyme Q that we use that.
No. When we produce this NADH from glycolysis, where is it made? That's all. Where is it going to get used? You have to transport it. You have to transport it against this concentration gradient from the cytosol into the mitochondria. Against this concentration gradient, and that's going to require energy. So some of the energy that you would otherwise get from this NADH is invested in just getting it into the mitochondria itself. Now that being said, this is accounting for both the energy that you're using to get it in and what it makes, and so yes, it's only 6 for that NADH. So let's start to add some things up here. So we're going to talk about the process, the things made, and the proton equivalents. Yes? It's a net 6. That's because you're actually using some of your proton motive force to pump it. Yes?
Wait, so then how come that doesn't affect the FADH2?
Because the FADH is made during Krebs cycle. The Krebs cycle is happening in the mitochondria.
Right, okay.
Okay, so let's start adding up some things made here. We have glycolysis. What things do we make in glycolysis? So give me some of the things that we make.
ATP.
ATP, what else? Yeah. So we're making a net of 2 ATP, and we are making 2 NADH per glucose. And our net there for the NADH here, made in the cytosol, is 12 protons. I don't know why that became like a proton plus or minus. I need to fix that. That's supposed to be an H plus, not an H plus or minus. Like, we don't know what it is. It's Schrodinger's proton. It doesn't decide those charges until you look at it. Okay. So, let's look at the Krebs cycle. What kind of things are we making during the Krebs cycle? NADH, FADH2. Yeah. We get GTP, we get NADH, we're getting FADH2. So, we get 8 NADH from each glucose because we're running it through twice, and we get 4. We get 2 FADH2 and 2 GTP. So the proton equivalents of this, so this times 10 that we get from that are 80 protons there. And then we have 2 FADH, which gives us 12 protons from that. And then we have the GTP. So our ATPs and our GTPs, we're going to just keep in our back pocket at the moment because we don't make protons or we don't pump protons with them. We'll just keep them aside for the moment. So the total here is 104 protons. How many ATP then can you get from those? How would you find out? Yeah, divide by 3. If you do that, you get 34 ATP. But that's not all. Yes?
Just a question on the math. So if we're using a highly rounded number to 3 instead of 3.3, then we're way off for ATP as well.
Well, that would be, but the problem is like you actually need 3. Like it's only rounded because for each reaction you can't store that energy to use for the next reaction. Does that make sense? So that actually is energy lost because you can't store it. If you can invent little batteries for ATP synthase, I think you'd actually kind of be crazy. That'd be weird. But you could also maybe get rich. And that'd be like more efficient life, fundamentally more efficient life. Probably not. Which would actually make everyone just really, because here's the thing, if I didn't need to eat as much, I would still eat as much. This would be a bad thing for me. Okay, so we got 30 ATP from that, but we got 2 net ATP from glycolysis, and 2 ATP because we take the GTP and turn them into ATP as well, or essentially use them to phosphorylate an ADP. And so we have this hypothetical maximum of 38 ATP per glucose. Woo! Do you think we actually get 38 ATP per glucose? No. That doesn't actually happen. So, how are we done? This is because for a couple of reasons. Number one, we're actually not using the proton molar force just for making ATP. We use it for a lot of other things as well. Just a few examples are we using it for pyruvate transport. We have to get the pyruvate that was out in the cytosol that's made into the mitochondria against this concentration gradient so that we can use it in the Krebs cycle. That's one thing that we use it for. In addition, we have to get phosphates into there. We also have to transport in ADP because we are using this ATP, we have that, or the ADP, we're using up ATP other places. It gives us the ADP, but then we have to get it back into mitochondria to rephosphorylate. One thing that's not up here, but we also talk about, we also have to get the NADH in. So we're dissipating some of our proton motor force for that as well. So for all these reasons, it doesn't exactly equal this. This is a thought I will leave you with today. The actual production then, we actually get about 25 ATP per glucose. This is the reality. And I will leave it with that for today. We have a little bit more math, but that's what I'll leave it with for today. So remember, the quiz is going to be ending at midnight tonight. There is another quiz on electron transport chain that is going to go up tomorrow morning, and I believe that one I'm going to let go through the weekend, and so it's going to be over electron transport chain. So I'll put it up tomorrow morning. I'll remind you about it on Friday. It'll go through the weekend. I'll also put up the Dropbox as soon as I possibly can for extra credit for the thing tonight. Okay.
Dr. Alsay.
Yes.